Hello everyone, in this video you guys are finally going to learn how to improve your chess game, and this is no clickbait. In this video we are going to understand how to analyze your chess game after the completion of your match without engine and with engine, which is a very critical factor in order to improve your chess game. So I don't want to waste any further time, so let's begin. So starting with how to analyze your game without engine, here is one of my game that I recently played. It was a blitz game 3+2. So I was playing with white. First, let's try to see how do I analyze the game after the game is completed without engine. So I started with 1d4, knight to f6, c4, e6, knight to f3. Okay, so basically this is all theory. I'm using the basic fundamentals of openings to play any particular opening, which is to control the center, develop your pieces, castle as soon as possible. So opponent played d5, knight to c3, bishop to e7, and now there are already two ways, bishop f4 and bishop g5. I chose the move bishop to f4, black castle. I played e3. Now you see, simply developing my pieces, opening up the bishop. And now black played the move a6. So here, black's general idea here is, for example, if I try to develop my bishop, black wants to take the pawn on c4 and he wants to play the move b5, attacking the bishop and develop the bishop via b7. So that's the reason I knew this theory and I played the move c5. What is the idea? Now basically black can no longer capture on c4, and whenever, if like the general idea for black is to play b6, and now I can simply take over here and simply continue with bishop d3. And you see, I'm having a perfectly fine position, developing all my pieces, and black is already struggling with the bishop on c8 because the bishop on c8 is not really having a good square to get developed. So instead of b6, my opponent played the move knight to d7, simply developing the pieces, which also makes sense. And now I played the move bishop to d3. Okay, so first of all, I think there could be an improvisation at the place of bishop d3, which could be maybe h3 over here. Why h3? Because in the game I played the move bishop d3, okay? So maybe the opponent can go knight h5, and you won't believe it, but this is exactly what happened in the game. But still, it's not bad at all. But I guess if I would have played h3, then I'm at least having the square on h2 to go back with the bishop. And now I can simply develop my pieces and simply short castle, and I'm having a fine position. But instead I played the move bishop to d3, knight to h5, bishop to g3 looks fine because if I castle up, the opponent can take, and I would be having double pawns. Bishop to g3, and now opponent played the move b6. And after b6, I believe that I'm already having many options in the position. I can push the pawn, I can take the pawn, I can even play the move b4. So there were three major options. Let's try to discuss. In the game, I played the move cb6, which looks fine. What would have happened if I just push the pawn? The knight is attacked. The knight have to go back, and now my pawn is hanging on c6. So can I play something? So first of all, can I defend the pawn? I can play the move knight to e5 to defend the pawn and to also attack his knight, which actually makes sense. The knight have to go back, and now maybe I can simply castle up, which looks fine, or maybe even rook c1, just protecting the pawn. And I guess this position is much better because black's all pieces are pretty stuck. Okay, but I played the move cb6. What if, can I play the move b4 in the position just to protect the pawn on c5? Maybe the opponent can go a5. Maybe, yeah. If a3, the opponent can take on maybe b4. Maybe he can take over here. But this looks better for white, I believe, yeah, because I'm having the open file, black is the one having the weakness. So yeah, maybe even b4 makes sense. So yeah, in the game I played the move cb6, which now I think is the least favorite option. He played the move cb6, and now rook c1. Okay, the idea of rook c1 was I wanted to maybe move the knight and play the move bishop c7. Maybe I could have simply castled up in this position. Or maybe I think knight e5, attacking the knight on h5. Because if the knight takes the bishop, I can take with the h pawn. And I'm putting some pressure over here. Yeah, that makes some sense. And if the opponent takes over here, I can play the move, maybe simply bishop takes, and I'm still attacking the knight and I'm pretty happy. Okay, so instead I played the move rook c1, knight cross g3, h cross g3, and I already felt that this position is already better for me because I'm having the open h file. I'm the one attacking the black king. Opponent played the move g6. Okay, I was thinking that the opponent might go for h6, which also looks fine. And then my idea was to play bishop b1, queen d3 and try to launch checkmate in 1. But okay, instead the opponent played g6, which also looks fine. And now, like a normal move, I believe, is to simply short castle up and the position looks fine. But I personally felt that the black can also play bishop b7, play rook c8, maybe b5, queen b6, and black is also having no problem, maybe just putting the bishop on g7. I played the move knight to e5. And now I'm having some thoughts about this position. Like I played the move knight e5. My idea was to get the queen like this and try to attack the black king, which makes sense. But I'm now trying to wonder, can I open up the position with e4? Because if the opponent takes, I can maybe take with the knight or with the bishop. If I take with the knight, it opens up my rook. It allows my pieces to get developed, but at the same time I'm having a long-term weakness on d4 because that's a pawn which is a weak pawn, which is an isolated pawn. So instead I played the move knight e5, which looks a fine move to me. Knight cross e5, d cross e5, and now like this was a bit risky play by me, I personally believe, because now I'm having two double pawns. Opponent is having the bishop pair, which is generally good, and now the only thing that I'm having here is to attack the black king, or else eventually in the long run it's going to backfire and these double pawns are eventually going to become the liability for me. In the game, black played bishop b7 and I played the move queen g4, which looks a very good move to me with the idea of playing queen h3 and attacking the black king. And now black played the move f5 in the position, which already looks a bit bad to me personally. I believe, like, I was not sure how black can continue in the position because my idea is already to play queen h3. Maybe the opponent can play h5 then. I'm having g4 and the position is getting a bit messy. Even I'm not sure what's happening up. Let's try to consider some move. Maybe some rook c8. Maybe queen h3. Maybe h5. g4. Maybe h4, yeah. Protecting the pawn, and now after g3 maybe g5 could be an idea, or maybe now black can simply push this pawn, opening up the bishop. So yeah, definitely the position is getting a bit messy, but if you want to improve your chess, you need to calculate concretely and you need to try to understand the ideas. So maybe queen h3 makes sense. Let's try to find the best resource for the black. h5 is kind of the only move, or else you can't really stop the idea. I want to play the move g4. I'm looking for some sacrifices after bishop g6, fg6, queen cross e6 check, king g7, and I believe nothing is happening now. So maybe bishop g6 is not working. Let's try to find g4, h4. Okay, am I having something even more interesting in this position? Can I play g5? Now I have broken the link, and after bishop cross f4, maybe I can even go f4, the bishop goes back, and I'm not sure, maybe now queen g4, and now looking for some sacrifices option on g6, maybe king g7, and now I can finally try to maybe get the knight over here, maybe f5. The position is for sure very complicated, but interesting at the same time. So after queen g4, the opponent played f5. I personally felt, I think after doing some analysis with you guys, I believe maybe rook c8 is a fine move. Or I'm not sure, maybe even king g7 makes sense with the idea of rook h8. After queen h3, the opponent can play h5, and now I can play rook h8 and defend everything, which also looks a very good idea to me. In the game, we had f5, and now I was thinking mainly about two options. Either I can simply play queen h3 directly, allowing rook f7, with the idea of knight e2, getting the knight over here, looking for some sacrifices option. Maybe Maybe push? No, push I can take. That doesn't make sense. Yeah, I was looking at bishop b4 check, I remember. King f1. And now, my idea is pretty concrete. I want to play knight f4, sack the knight on g6 and mate him on h8. Which I believe is a very good idea. Maybe rook over here, knight to f4. Maybe queen goes to e7, defending everything. But okay, after a3, the bishop is getting trapped. Yeah. So yeah, the position is very interesting for sure. But okay, instead, I decided, okay, let me take over here. Why? Because I thought maybe after queen h3, I was not really sure because it was a blitz game. I was not really sure whether the attack will work. Whether after knight f4 there would be any sacrifices available for me. So I went for a bit more practical option, which is to take over here. And now I definitely thought that the opponent is going to take with the rook. Why? Because it defends the e6 and the g6 pawn. Yeah, and now my idea was once again maybe to play queen h3 to attack this. The rook f7 and I can take over here. Maybe I can even take on g6, threatening a mate in 1. So the position was definitely very interesting. But instead the opponent took with the bishop. And now I played the move queen e6, which was a rash decision. Maybe I'm now thinking for a bit. I think rook h7 is simply winning. Because now queen g6 is coming up. And after king h7, queen g6 check. Queen h7 is eventually a mate. Instead I played queen e6, which was a rash decision. Black played king g7. And now I played the move queen g4. Because now my idea is to play rook h7. Okay, which I believe is a fine move. I was trying to think of some direct ideas, but direct ideas were not really working up. So queen g4, and now opponent played the move d4, which was a big blunder, and I believe the final blunder of the game. Because now I simply played the move rook h7, and now my opponent decided to resign the game, and I simply won because it doesn't matter whatever he does. It's going to be a checkmate and 2 move, and the game is over. So this was the basic analysis without using the engines. Now let's try to use the engines and try to do some powerful analysis. So what is basically how to do analysis, how to analyze your games with engine. Let's do it. Okay, so now let's try to do the analysis with the engine. I have opened up the engine. So I played the move d4, knight to f6, c4, e6, knight f3, d5. Everything looks fine. Knight c3. Okay, so for at the first who do not use chess engines, I must tell them that at the right sides you can see the points like plus 0.25, plus 0.28, which represents the position. If it's plus 0.25, it means it is in the favor of white. If it's going to be eventually, for example, let me make you an example. For example, if I just push the pawn. Now you see, now the engine is saying -1, which is in the favor of black. Okay, so bishop e7, I played the move bishop f4, short castle, and we have the engine's 2 main line, which is e3 and queen c2. We played the move e3, opponent played the move a6, and c5 is one of the good move, which was one of my preparation. Opponent played the move knight to d7. Okay, after knight d7, the engine is giving some good advantage to white, which is around plus 0.7. Instead, the engine is saying to go something like knight h5, but I believe knight d7 makes a perfect sense because it is a human move. Opponent is simply developing his pieces. I played the move bishop to d3, which is actually a fine move according to the engine. h3 is not really recommended, but bishop d3 is a good move. Okay, bishop d3. Okay, opponent played the move knight h5. Knight h5 is the best move by the opponent, and now I decided to play the move bishop g3, which looked kind of natural to me. But now the engine is saying that I'm actually having better move, because after bishop g3, the evaluation getting dropped. And yeah, it actually makes sense because I'm just using my same piece. So engine is saying that I can play the move something like b4 or e3, which is actually too hard to find because it's definitely not a human move. It's not a human move because you're just pushing up the pawns in the side, which at the first glance it doesn't make any sense. But if we try to look closely, if the opponent takes on f4, we can take it back, And now, first of all, we are having more space on the queen side because of b4. We are also having more space in the center, and now we are also having more space in the king side, which actually makes the position very much favorable. And after g6, the engine says already that we can simply launch for an attack after h4 h5, which actually makes a lot of sense. Okay, and I guess the idea of a3 is still the same with the idea of expanding on the queen side. Instead, I played the move bishop g3, and the opponent played the move b6. Instead of b6, the opponent should have played the move something like g6 or c6. g6 makes sense. You're trying to take precautions, and maybe the knight can go back to g7 at some important decisions, at the critical moments. Opponent played the move b6, and now I played the move c cross b6, which is a move that is not liked by the engine. Engine says that I can go for playing the move like something like c6 or even knight to e5. Knight e5 is actually a very strong move. Let's see. I'm first of all attacking the knight. Okay, if the opponent takes the knight, I can take with the bishop, and the knight is not really having a good square. Maybe knight f6, and I'm having the bishop pair. I can maybe look for an attack maybe. Yeah. So yeah, I played the move cb6. Instead of cb6, the engine is also showing c6, like, which is a move that we have already analyzed, and I believe c6 is a good move. Knight b8, we have checked out the move knight e5, which is actually the best move according to the engine as well. Okay, now the engine is showing around something like queen c2 or queen f4, but definitely knight e5 doesn't look bad at all. Yeah, and I guess eventually, according to our analysis, after short castle or maybe rook c1, white is having a comfortable position, and the engine also agrees. So you see, whatever you play, it should have a logic, it should have a reason behind it. If it has a reason, the engine will definitely agree to your idea. Instead, we played the move cb6, opponent played cb6, and now we played the move rook c1, which was not a good move. So here, knight e5 is actually a very strong move available in the position, because it opens up the queen. If the knight goes back, we are having knight c6, and I believe I can simply chop off the bishop, and then I'm simply having the bishop pair advantage, and I'm already better. And if the opponent takes the bishop on g3, then we are having a very strong move bishop h7 tactic, because after h takes, it's a check, the king goes back, and now queen h5 is sort of a force mate. The opponent can't really stop it, which is, yeah, it's a very interesting tactic that is coming up. So instead of knight e5, which could have been a very strong move in the position, because after knight e5, if the opponent plays g6, still knight c6, chopping off the bishop. Yeah, instead I played the move rook c1, knight g3, which was a bad move actually. Black should have played bishop b7, simply continuing his development. Opponent took and now played the move g6, which is a fine move, and now I played the move knight to e5, which was a bad move, because engine is already showing that black is slightly better already. In this position, okay, e4 is actually a very good move, because according to our analysis, it was not. But after de4, bishop e4, the engine is saying that white is having a comfortable position. What after rook b8? After rook b8, we can go queen d2. Wow. So maybe, okay, so that was the idea of playing e4 with the idea of going queen d2. Maybe, okay, my idea was to simply centralize the pieces, but engine's idea is a bit different, which is to get the pieces like this and simply attack the black king, which is a very strong idea for sure. So knight e5 was played, knight e5, de5, bishop b7, queen g4, which was the best move. And now the opponent played the move f5, which is already better for white. F5 is a mistake. Black should have played something like rook c8, which is actually a fine move. We discussed queen h3, h5, g4. Black is already better, but h4. Okay, we discussed g5, which is actually the second best move. Bishop g5, f4, the second best move. Bishop e7. And now queen g4, king g7, and okay, eventually in the end of the day, black is having a comfortable position around -1. So definitely this would have been a bad idea, which was the same according to our analysis. Instead, the opponent played f5, which turned out to be the mistake, and I'm so happy that I found the right move, which is e cross f6. Queen h3 was the move that I was looking for, which is also fine actually, but now h5 is the best defense according to the engine, because now I'm not really having any good scopes to break the position, but now knight e2, knight f4 or knight d4, attacking the weaknesses could be a very good idea. Instead, I played the move en passant, and now rook f6 is the best move as the engine says. Opponent played the move bishop f6, which is already a big blunder, because now rook h7 is simply winning. It was simply winning, which I simply missed this idea, and I simply made a blunder by taking the e pawn, king g7, and now coming back with the queen to g4, which is a fine move. The best move would have been maybe queen h3, attacking like this, because after h5 maybe bishop g6 is a very strong move, and eventually that's a mate. And if at the place of h5, if the opponent plays rook h8 defending the pawn, now we have queen h6 check available, king g8. Am I having some sacrifices available? Okay, so eventually black is somehow defending, but after queen h6 check, king g8, I can actually castle up, and now position wise I'm a pawn up. Blacking is weak, the rook is doing nothing, and white is simply better. Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, so instead king g7, I played the move queen g4, d4, and now I simply spot the blunder, which is the best way. Rook h7, and eventually after rook h7, which was a brilliant move, opponent simply decided to resign the game. So yeah, it's eventually a mate. Yeah, so yeah, this is how you do the analysis. So basically at the start, if you are first, I would always recommend to do the analysis of your game without using the engine. Try to understand the idea and the logic of each and every move behind whatever you are playing. Okay, was this a good move? Maybe not. Am I having something even better? What could be the best defense from my opponent? Maybe this move is not good from my opponent. What could be the best defense? Oh, maybe rook c8 is the best. Okay, then how can I continue the game? Like, that's how you should do the self-analysis thing. And yeah, once you have done the analysis, self-analysis, then you can open up the engine to cross-verify your lines, like to verify the lines that what you have analyzed is correct, or are you lacking something? Have you missed anything, or was the analysis perfectly correct? So you see, like, the analysis that I did with you guys without using any engine, like, some lines were correct according to the engine, which I'm pretty happy, and some lines were not perfect, like something like e4 decisions. You see, with the idea of queen d2 going queen h6, I missed this idea. I took with the knight centralizing the pieces, which was not the best idea. You see, this is generally the best way. Once you do this in a regular basis, your understanding is eventually going to build up, and you are going to have a complete idea when to use the engine, when to not, how to do the self-analysis, and how to use 100% power of the engine, and how to improve further. Basically, doing the analysis is the best way to improve your chess. If you can learn from your mistakes, what more do you want? Yeah, so that's the best way that I would like to say. Always analyze your games after the completion of your match, and that's the best way to improve your chess. So I hope that this video was helpful. Maybe you guys now have a basic idea about how to analyze your games with the engine and without the engine. So if this video was helpful, if this was fun, make sure to like, share and subscribe, and I'm going to come up with these more interesting chess videos like this. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching Oneshot Chess. Bye bye.